Well, hello, everybody. It's Sophia Mona Lisa from the Roseville Mystery School, and I am back, as promised, this weekend with part two of my Galactic Evolutionary update. Now, today is Saturday, June 14th. This is Father's Day weekend, so happy Father's Day to all fathers that may be watching this video journal today. Now, last weekend, I put out part one, which was an update on my own personal transformational journey in terms of how it relates to these other two parts, the Galactic New Earth Project. And then finally, over the solstice weekend, I'll be putting out the part on how it relates to the Roseville Mystery School's evolution in terms of what we're doing. But for right now, today, we're going to be focused on the Galactic New Earth Project. Now, this is super huge for me personally because this Galactic New Earth Project got kicked off in alignment with the Capricorn sovereignty goddess, the Venus Synodic cycle for the Capricorn sovereignty goddess. That happened in January of 2022. I could feel something coming for several months. I knew it was big, wasn't sure what it was going to be, wasn't sure what it would even be about, but I could feel it coming. And then on my birthday, January 8th, is when I received the message from Sophia about the Galactic New Earth Project and asking me whether or not I would facilitate it. Now, the reason why this was so huge was because back in 2019, I had gone on a Magdalene journey through the Cathar region of southern France. And I think it was like the second day that we were there, we hiked up to the seat of Isis, which is in the forest in a small community called Rennes-les-Bains, which is right next to Rennes-le-Château. Most people who are interested in the Magdalene at least know of Rennes-le-Château. It's right near there. So this seat of Isis, it's a 5,000 plus year old stone seat. It's a megalithic stone. As far as everybody knows, in terms of the local culture, it's just always been there. And when we went to visit it, and it was my turn to sit in it, I was taken into a multi-dimensional portal where I received an attunement. And so really all of my work, and especially this work with Sophia and the Galactic New Earth Project, really became initiated then with that attunement. And I was there with my priestess sister, Windsong. If you've followed any of our videos, you'll have seen her. She was teaching the alchemical process, the alchemy in our gatherings. So this was huge for me to be asked by Sophia to facilitate this project. And she gave me the name Galactic New Earth Project, specifically galactic, because while we here in humanity were a part of this project in terms of raising the consciousness of the earth and humanity into 5D plus, which is known as the New Earth, our galactic brothers and sisters were also present with us and are still present with us, working in this project with us. So initially, I was aware of the Arcturians and the Pleiadians. I became aware of the Syrians and the Lyrans also participating. At this point, goddess only knows which galactic civilizations have emissaries of light that are working with this project. So I just kind of wanted to give you that little recap about the Galactic New Earth Project. If you're new to my channel and my work, or if it's been a long time since you've, heard me speak about how this project got off the ground. Now, what I can tell you, which is really interesting, because it relates to this whole evolutionary piece about the project, is that the day after I put out part 1 on the personal transformational journey, and I will put a link at the end to that part 1 if you haven't seen it yet. In my feed on Instagram, I received a meme that was related to, I'm sorry, my mouse isn't working. Okay, here we go. That was related to a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh. Now, I love Thich Nhat Hanh. And let me just say straight out, I've never identified as a Buddhist or consider myself a Buddhist, but I love his work. I'm kind of an equal opportunity. Anyhow, the quote in the meme that showed up for me the day after I posted part 1 was this quote. And I love it because in part 1, I tell you how I got this very clear message from Sophia to stop the work, to stop it, especially in terms of how I had been doing it, to just stop. Okay. So then I see this meme the day after I announced to all of you that I got that message from her. And I love this quote. I wasn't even aware of this quote. I've never seen this quote before. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, stopping is the basic Buddhist practice of meditation. You stop running. You stop struggling. You allow yourself to rest, to heal, to calm. And when I read that, I said to myself, oh my gosh, this is wisdom coming from Sophia, explaining to me at a deeper level why, the only thing I could hear at that time as I was in that little pile of ashes was stop. And I love that this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh about stopping and about Buddhist practice showed up because I received another piece of guidance from Sophia about the Pisces goddess journey that I didn't share in part 1, that is related to this quote being from Thich Nhat Hanh and being about a Buddhist practice. And so you'll see that as I'm moving forward in the whole evolutionary piece about where the Galactic New Earth Project is going. Okay, so I just wanted to share that because that was just an amazing synchronicity for that to pop up the very next morning after publishing that part 1. Okay, so back in January 2022, with the kickoff of the Venus Synodic cycle known as the Capricorn goddess, sovereignty goddess journey, Sophia only gave me the first part of the project, the first 8 months. I thought that was it. Little did I know, 3+ years on, we'd still be working on this project, which is fine. It's just kind of funny. So what we did to start off with, and let me see if I can find a good place to put my face. Put it over here. Is at every Venus gate activation that was occurring, we were installing rose gold Sophia Christ light codes into these 8 Venus temples that are on the planet. Now, this is the book that talks about the Venus temples on the planet. I will put the website for where you can purchase this in the description box below. And what we were doing as the beginning part of this project, as I said, with each gate activation in the Venus journey, we were based on what was happening cosmologically, astrologically in the sky for those gate activations. We were installing at each one of these temples these rose gold Sophia Christ light codes and reawakening the temples. And so the book Temples of Venus only talks about 7 temples. Sophia actually revealed to me an 8th temple that had been forgotten about. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to go around quickly to share with you where each of the temples are. So we start up here at a temple on Mount, I think it's Ararat in Turkey. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Then we go over to Alexandria, Egypt. There's a temple here where this fortress is located. Then we go to Rennes-le-Chateau. Remember, I just mentioned Rennes-le-Chateau. This is where my priestess sister Wensong and I were in 2019 as a part of our Magdalene journey. So this is, here there is what's known as a landscape Venus temple. Landscape meaning with Venus, her 8-year cycle creates this pentagram, which is like the center of the rose that she creates in the sky as she's going from point to point on each petal or each point of the pentagram. So Rennes-le-Chateau is one of the points on the pentagram, right? The 5-pointed star that's on the landscape there in the center of France. So we were in and around that Venus temple at the different points and the different places, like the mountain Bouguerak is there, and it's famous because geologically it's like an upside down mountain, because the soil samples at the top of the mountain are older than the soil samples at the bottom of the mountain. So there's different points there. We were there. Okay, this next Venus temple is at the Alhambra Palace in Spain. The next one is in the Canary Islands, and these are some pyramid ruins there at the Canary Islands. The next one's in Sedona in Angel Valley. There's a very famous labyrinth there, and this very famous Angel Valley Knoll. The next one is in Hawaii. There is a very famous Hindu temple there on this island of, I think it's pronounced Kauai in Hawaii. And then the one that Sophia revealed to me is actually right behind the Cathedral of St. Louis in New Orleans, because this cathedral is built on the Mississippi River, and it's right where the river makes like a crescent moon. And in fact, one of the nicknames of New Orleans is the city of the crescent moon, because of that geological formation. And of course, the crescent moon is another ancient symbol associated with the goddess. Anytime you see pictures of, for instance, the goddess Diana, you'll see her with the crescent moon. In fact, it used to even be quite a popular thing, I know, in France, with the nobility to have themselves have a portrait of themselves painted. That the ladies have themselves portraits painted as the goddess Diana, and they would have the little crescent moon on their forehead for that. So that was like the whole first part of the Galactic New Earth Project, getting all of these Venus temples reactivated, bringing them back online, connecting them. We did at the end, connected all of them with a light grid, because we had installed those rose gold Sophia Christ codes, light codes into them. So then I thought that was going to be it, right? But Sophia, of course, had other plans. And the next thing she said was, well, now you're going to start activating within humanity the 12 strands of DNA activation. So we started with the third strand, and we went all the way through the 12 strands. And believe it or not, timing wise, this is the magical exquisiteness of the divine choreography. Getting all of those 8 temples activated and doing all of these 12 strands of DNA activations was exactly within the 19-month time period of that Venus journey through the Capricorn sovereignty goddess. It was just amazing. So it was during the metamorphic underworld, which is the last phase of the Venus cycle, when the Capricorn goddess was being transformed into the next goddess, which was the Leo divine royalty goddess, that Sekhmet, who was one of 2 Leo goddesses that we worked with, came through and said, I know you think you've done a great job, but excuse me, it's, you're not done yet. We're not done yet. And so Sekhmet and Sophia told us that we were going to be through the entire Leo royalty goddess journey. And again, the exquisite choreography of it was that precisely through this 19-month journey, we were able to activate strands 3 through 33 strands of the Sophia DNA code, bringing about the Christ race, the restoration, the reawakening, the rebirth, whatever word you want to use, of the Christ race here on the planet. And of course, the 33rd strand is the Christ strand of DNA. So that was huge. I had already been receiving from Sophia that the Leo goddess journey was going to be a little different, because we were going to be going really into what I call the Christ heart, which is a higher octave of your heart chakra in the chakra system that you think about in terms of your physical body. So you have your physical body and its chakra system. Then we have a higher octave chakra system that is a part of our rainbow light body. So all of this work was really about becoming attuned to our Christ heart and being able to receive guidance, wisdom directly from Sophia through our Christ heart. Whatever you relate to in terms of the divine source, God, goddess, receiving those messages directly through the Christ heart in an area of the Christ heart where your sacred flame, your divine flame resides, which I call the Holy of Holies within your Christ heart. So this was a whole new evolutionary shift in terms of helping to bring online, so to speak, all of the DNA codes to restore the Christ race on planet Earth. Now, remember, this is a galactic new Earth project, right? So as I mentioned, I already knew the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Lyrans were involved in this. So when Sophia and Sekhmet said, now you're going to activate strands 13 through 33, my mind kind of crashed, like how is that going to work? And of course, they always have the answer. And so I was told that we would be utilizing the 22 ancient star signs of the lost zodiac. And so this is when we started working with the star frequencies. So at any given day of the month, there is a star from one of these constellations whose frequencies are informing our planet and the consciousness of humanity and us on an individual basis. So we were really relying heavily on those star frequencies to assist us with those different strands of the Sophia DNA code that was coming online. So let me explain to you a little bit about the Sophia DNA code. So you have your regular DNA, right? The kind that they can like physically locate, right? They can splice it, take a cross section. And when they do that, interestingly enough, mystery upon mystery, you see the image of the flower of life. Well, in the quantum space around that DNA is where the DNA of the 33 strands of the Sophia DNA code reside in the quantum. Now, we have a divine template, blue plate, template, whatever you want to call it, that has all of that in terms of how we were originally created as Christ beings. When all kinds of stuff happened, which is a long history, I won't go into detail. And there was genetic manipulation, and humanity got cut off from all of that and only had the 2 strands of DNA within the physical body. Those other strands of DNA were sitting there dormant in the divine template. And so part of what we were doing is we were reestablishing a connection between the strand of DNA in our divine template and the strand of DNA in our quantum field within us that was dormant, reconnecting them, and then restoring that connection and then again bringing it online. Kind of like if you have a dead battery in your car, how you use jumper cables, right? You put the jumper cable on the dead battery, you put the jumper cable on the live battery, and then boom, the dead battery comes back. Similar kind of a process that we were doing with each strand of DNA to bring them back online. So that was through the entire Leo royalty goddess journey. As I said, 19 months of this. We just completed that in March, that 33rd strand of DNA. Now, as I mentioned, we were working initially with the Christ heart, right? This higher octave of the 3D heart chakra. But then, as things evolve, we were being brought into activating all of the higher octave chakras of our rainbow light body. Some people refer to it as their crystalline light body. Okay. So we did all of that work, bringing all of those higher octave chakras into resonance because they needed to come into resonance because of these higher strands of DNA that we were bringing online. So through that whole process, we were still working with the star frequencies because they were helping us like the battery cable. But also that's when the ascended masters showed up. Specifically, initially, it was Saint Germain. Saint Germain showed up. Of course, we've always been working with Yeshua and Magdalene, and most people know that they are ascended masters. But the ascended master who made his presence known to let us become aware that now we're working like at a whole new playing field, that the ascended masters are going to be helping us with this, was Saint Germain. And with that, we started working with the different rays, the sacred flames of the rays that the different ascended masters are associated with, and also the different archangels that are associated with those flames, sacred flames. And so that was a whole, again, huge evolutionary expansion of the work with the Galactic New Earth Project. And through it all, our foundation for it was alchemy. And I just cannot say enough about Winsong and her expertise as an alchemist and helping us navigate this whole part of the journey through the alchemical process. And once again, through each phase, because there's 4 phases of the Venus synodic cycle, through each phase, it was just a perfect alignment with the 8 steps of alchemy. And so Winsong and I were just, continually being amazed at the choreography of it all that was just given to us. It was perfect. It wasn't like trying to piece puzzle pieces together that didn't fit and like cutting off a piece to force it to fit. Everything was just a perfect coming together. So, of course, in part 1, I mentioned about how at the end of this whole Leo royalty goddess, I was the phoenix, right? That burst into flames and was sitting there like a pile of ashes. If you've watched the Harry Potter movies, you've seen probably that scene when Harry is in Dumbledore's office and the phoenix just spontaneously combusts before his eyes, and it is there as a pile of ashes. And so that's when all I could hear was stop. And then a couple of weeks or so later, I got the message from Sophia to start working with the Noble Eightfold Path. And of course, there's eight paths on the Noble Eightfold Path, which just happen to align with the 8 gate activations. And this is that connection to the earlier quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. Again, the Noble Eightfold Path tends to be identified as a Buddhist practice. And I am not a Buddhist, and I don't identify as a Buddhist, but this is what I was given. And so I said, okay. That's why that quote from Thich Nhat Hanh was kind of like a nod to all of this. It's like, she's so funny the way she slips this stuff in. So this is going to be extremely relevant as I go forward in terms of how the Galactic New Earth Project is evolving through this Pisces Divine Mother Goddess. So one, remember I told you, we're not doing gatherings with the Galactic New Earth Tribe members. I'm not putting out videos. This is an intimate, personal, inner journey between you, the egoic self, and you, the divine self, and the Divine Mother in all her aspects and embodiments is our ally for this. So hold on a second, because I can hear Dolce scratching around something. Let me make sure she's not tearing something up. Just give me a second here to pause. Okay, so glad I stopped because she was digging around in the bin next to the kitty litter box where I put all of the droppings. So anyhow, I kind of lost track of where I was because I got distracted by her. Well, I'll just pick up here at the Noble Eightfold Path. What I will tell you is that at each gate activation, one of these, what I would call universal practices, is associated with each of those gate activations. And all of that information is on my website. Okay. So the next piece about this Pisces Divine Mother Goddess journey, which is again a whole new evolutionary piece around the Galactic New Earth Project, goes to the fact that, you know, if you know anything about astrology, you'll understand that Pisces is a water element. So you've got water, earth, air, and fire. And all of the 12 astrological signs are one of those 4 elements. Pisces is water. The other 2 water signs are Scorpio and Cancer. Okay, that's important to know. All right, so right now in this Pisces Divine Mother Goddess journey, which is a water element journey, we are also experiencing simultaneously a Mars synodic cycle in Cancer. I mentioned in part 1 that this brand new Mars Throne of Christ archetype for Cancer journey started in January. So Venus is having her journey, her dance with the sun through a water sign. Mars is having his dance with the sun through a water sign. And come November, Mercury is going to be going into its water element years. Now, immediately this was brought into my awareness. Wow, these 3 personal transformational planets, luminary bodies in a water element. This is huge. And the way my mind works is like, when was the last time, if ever, all three of these personal planets were in the water element? And so I went and I looked, and it was 79 years ago. To be specific, 1946 to 1948, but 1946 is 79 years ago. Now, synchronistically, if you're familiar with Gary Caton's work on Hermetica Triptycha, he tells us in terms of Mercury returns that when you are 79 years old, you are having your 12th Mercury return. And he says that most people, because of that age, don't experience more than a 12th return. And so he considers that to be kind of like a completion with the Mercury evolution for you through your life. And what I loved about what he says about that 12th return, and he gave several examples of it in his book, is that 12th Mercury return has to do with wholeness and unification. And of course, that's what the Pisces goddess is. Pisces is the ruler of the 12th house. Again, wholeness and unification. So we've got this whole synchronicity coming in. So this is really, it'll become more obvious to you, because I did talk about the throne of Christ archetype in part 1 and what all of that's related to. I'm going to speak more to it in a few slides. This is really a time period that on a personal level, on a personal evolutionary level, these three personal planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, in this water element are helping us to come back into a place of cosmic unity, right? Where we are becoming aligned and unified with our divine selves. This is just incredible. And so this whole wholeness, unification, cosmic unity with source, peace is this big evolutionary push forward through the Galactic New Earth Project. Now, I want to take a moment and remind you of the significance about the water element. So I don't know if you're old enough to remember who Dr. Emoto is, Dr. Masaru Emoto. He's Japanese. In the 90s, he was doing all kinds of study with water as a field of consciousness and whether or not the consciousness of the water could be influenced by our human thoughts and emotions. And his findings are staggering. So here you can see water crystals based on whatever word, the frequency of whatever word he was speaking into the water. I don't know what word this water crystal represents, but I included this crystal because this crystal is actually the sacred geometry of the word love. And of course, Pisces is all about divine love. So what's interesting is he published his first book about these findings with water called Messages from Water in December of 1999. So, of course, I had to go back and look to see what was going on. And sure enough, Mars was having its Scorpio synodic cycle. Remember, I mentioned earlier that Scorpio, Cancer, along with Pisces, are water signs. So Mars was in a water element, and Mercury, right, the cosmic messenger communicating, was also in a water element. So water is like, in addition to the, any aspect or embodiment of the Divine Mother as an ally through this evolutionary stretch, water is crucial. And so I invite you to do a practice similar to what I'm doing. I have a mason jar full of purified water. In my mason jar, I've got an amethyst, I've got a rose quartz, and I've got a clear quartz crystal in the jar with the water. And I've put that mason jar of water in my front window, where as the sun rises, the sun is charging that water. And every time I fill that jar up with water, I speak to the water and I say, hello, my love. I am charging you with the highest, holiest frequency of pure divine love. You and I are one, and I appreciate receiving your frequency of love into every cell of my body. You don't have to use my exact words. I do invite you to do a similar practice where you are charging pure water with the crystals, amethyst, rose quartz, and clear quartz, and then speaking words of love into the water. Remember, not only is water a field of consciousness, but so are crystals. They are consciousness. And so they are conductors of frequency. And of course, if you put it where the sun is, all of those sun rays, lights of sun, have light codes in them, love codes in them, codes that are being stepped down from the great central sun, coming, through the galactic center and onto our planet. So really charging your water and using your water as a primary and fundamental practice through this Pisces goddess journey is a huge part of this evolutionary stage of the Galactic New Earth Project, working in conscious, equal partnership with the water element and the divine love frequency. Now, I mentioned in part one the awareness heightening that I had at I think it was the activation of the third eye chakra last month, the portal of perception around the victim field of consciousness, which is a fear-based field of consciousness. We call it the victim archetype. It is a fear-based field of consciousness that every soul that incarnates on this planet, unless they come here fully, self-realized, is overlaid with. And so we have to, get ourselves out of that. I don't want to use the word trap, because trap to me sounds like and feels like you're stuck forever. But if you think about like getting like a fly caught in a spider's web, yeah, he's kind of trapped there. He can't get himself out. And we do, as Christed beings, have the ability to get ourselves out of that spider's web, so to speak. Okay. Now, because it is a field of consciousness, there are many things that are encapsulated within the victim archetype. And I spoke about roles, identities, and beliefs that are a part of the victim archetype. And I also mentioned how this victim archetype, this fear-based field of consciousness, is really like a whole new refined understanding of what patriarchal energy is. Remember, I shared that patriarchal energy is divine masculine energy that has been perverted and made profane. So within the victim archetype, fear-based field of consciousness, you have this triangle. Again, I go back to like this spider web trap, so to speak. And there's 3 points on it. There's the hero, there is the villain, and there is the victim. Okay, so the victim is the one that's supposedly being persecuted by the villain. And then the hero is the one that comes and saves the victim, from the villain, right? It goes back to this whole savior persecutor complex thing. In each one of these sides of the triangle, there are roles, identities, and beliefs associated with them. And believe it or not, I've witnessed this with my own eyes. In the same conversation, one individual can ping pong between all 3 roles and identities of victim, villain, and hero. Now, this is a huge piece of the Pisces goddess evolutionary journey, because we have got to liberate ourselves from the most subtle frequencies related to this field of consciousness in order to come back into wholeness and unification with our divine self. We cannot have any of this triangulated role, identity, belief attachment going on within our own multidimensional field, or we will not be able to attain that unification, that wholeness that this whole Pisces goddess journey is about, that Mars in his throne of Christ journey and Mercury in his water elemental journey are here to help make sure happens for us, happens for humanity. Okay. This goes back to why Sophia said, incorporate at each gate activation one of the noble truths. Because as any of these roles, identities, beliefs related to either victim, villain, or hero comes up into your awareness, then you can practice the 8 noble truths to free yourself from the attachment to those roles, identities, and beliefs. So you see, it's all coming together. Now, I wanted to take a moment and show you what some of the roles and identities related to this triangle of the victim archetype are all about. And this is not, an exhaustive list. You may have other identities pop into your mind as I'm going through these lists. And if they pop into your mind, then please, I invite you to write them down, because that means that that identity has a frequency that is resonant in your field for you to become aware of and to liberate yourself from. So under the hero identity, we have the role of savior, protector, defender, liberator, the guardian angel, the rescuer, the champion, the knight in shining armor. Okay, as I said, you could go on and on with more of these kinds of identities, or more of these roles. Under the identity of victim, you've got the bullied person, the patsy, the easy mark, the abused, the pawn, the persecuted, the oppressed, the exploited. Okay. You could even go into a lot of these like gaslit, scapegoated kinds of victims. That is some of the buzzwords in mental health these days. Speaking of which, a narcissist, right, who is one that gaslights and scapegoats, would be one of the roles of the villain identity. So you can see how other stuff comes into this. So you've got the perpetrator, the offender, the aggressor, the violator, the trespasser, the evildoer, the thug, and the victimizer. I'm just sharing this with you to bring it into your awareness, because this whole Pisces goddess journey is about detachment from any roles, identities, beliefs related to this entire victim archetype, fear-based field of consciousness, so that you can come back into wholeness and unification with who you really are as a divine being. Now, with the Pisces goddess, we use mercy, compassion, forgiveness, and of course, love as ways in which we can help ourselves in shifting out of that fear-based consciousness of the victim archetype. And then remember, in your toolkit, you've got that 8 noble truth, that path of the 8 noble truths to assist you as well. So this has been a huge evolutionary expansion of the Galactic New Earth Project, because this is a unique moment in this project, because we're not working together as a tribe. We are all having to do this work within ourselves. As I said, it's between yourself, the egoic self, and yourself, the divine self. Now, we do have some cosmic allies in addition to the embodiments of the Divine Mother. And so I've mentioned in the past, like Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Isis as a Divine Mother, Violet Tara, or any of the Taras, Sedna, Thekla. So, whomever you connect with in that way. Now, because I am working with the luminary bodies, we've got new luminary bodies that we can work with at these gate activations to facilitate this evolutionary journey. So first of all, let me just say, all along, I've been working with Isis and Osiris. And I've been saying from the beginning that Isis represents Sophia and that Osiris represents Christ. Now, I know I mentioned in part 1 that trying to remember the lady's name, it'll come up in a minute, was the first person I had ever heard also associate Osiris with Christ or Christ consciousness. Let me amend that statement. She's actually the second other person. The first person that I heard make this same correlation between Isis and Osiris, and especially Osiris with Christ and Christ consciousness, was William Henry. And we're going to get back to William Henry in a slide or so. Okay, so when I'm doing charts, I use Isis, I use Osiris. So Isis is that Sophia, the Divine Mother, carrying the seed of knowledge, right? Sophia is gnosis, wisdom, knowledge. Osiris, as Christ, he is creating this perfect environment. That's what this divine masculine does. It serves and supports the divine feminine. So he's creating the perfect environment for that seed of knowledge to germinate and grow. Now, there is also an Egyptian prophecy about the return of Osiris and Bennu. Bennu in the Egyptian pantheon is the name of a deity who looks like a heron. So if you have any herons around you, I especially am highly attracted to great blue herons, and I get ecstatic when I see them show up in my backyard. This return of Osiris and Bennu prophecy has to do with the return of Christ consciousness. In the Christian faith, they talk about it as the second coming of Christ. Now, I know many people think that Jesus, or who I call Yeshua, is going to like physically show up in the Jesus body on the planet as the second coming of Christ. Yeshua explained to me that that's not the case, that the second coming of Christ is the emergence of Sophia through each and every person, all of humanity. So we are in the midst of this second coming of Christ. All right. Now, this is how what Yeshua explained to me about the second coming of Christ relates to this Egyptian prophecy about the return of Osiris and Bennu, the heron deity. First of all, they also are related to the rebirth or the reawakening. You could even use the word I did, re-emergence of Christ consciousness to earth, on earth. And specifically, there was a space vehicle named Osiris Rex who landed on the asteroid Bennu and took rock and soil samples from that asteroid and returned to Earth. Osiris Rex returned to Earth with the rock samples from Bennu on December 24th, 2023. Think about that. At that time, we were in the midst of the Leo divine royalty goddess journey. It's just incredible. Now, Bennu, as an Egyptian deity, is considered to be the original inspiration for the Greek mythology around the phoenix, right? The phoenix that dies and rises from the ashes. So Bennu, as an asteroid in our charts, will be representing creation and renewal, death and rebirth, the re-emergence of Christ consciousness. Okay, so I've always worked with Isis and Osiris in our chart. Now I'm including, as a cosmic ally in our charts, the asteroid Bennu. Okay, I mentioned in part one the whole Betelgeuse occultation. You guys have been waiting since, 2024 for me to speak on this, but it's taken this much time and space for me to receive the significance of this occultation of Betelgeuse by the asteroid Leona. And so here it is, and it's perfect timing because it goes hand in hand with this Pisces goddess journey, hand in hand with liberating ourselves from this victim archetype, fear-based consciousness field. Okay. So as a star, its frequencies have the ability to perceive the difference between survival connected energies, right? Fear-based, anything survival is fear-based, and true spiritual awareness, okay? As a result, fears are lessened, insight into the source of the fears is strengthened, and awareness as to the purpose of such fears and one's own life path in regard to the entire understanding of fear is enhanced. I mentioned in part one that Betelgeuse is crucial for this whole victim archetype, this whole victim triangle, right? Of villain, victim, hero, and all the roles and identities. Betelgeuse and his frequencies are crucial to this evolutionary part of the journey. Now, he was occulted by the asteroid Leona on December 12th, 2023. Look at this. That was 12 days before Osiris Rex returned to Earth with Bennu rocks and soil samples. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. This is just like mind-blowing, okay? So now Leona is a very small asteroid, and her frequencies have to do with clarity, focus, revelation, and also the fact that she's so small that small actions or small influences can have really great impact. Kind of goes back to like the whole Gandhi thing, you know, how like one person sitting down in peaceful, nonviolent protest can have a huge impact. And so when Leona occulted Betelgeuse, what does that occulted mean? It means that she crossed in front of the light streaming from Betelgeuse as a star, and the light of Betelgeuse seemed to go dark, to turn off. That's what the occult is, hiding the light of Betelgeuse. And when that happened, it was a cosmic reboot for the Earth to be able to be liberated from this victim archetype. And I am going to go so far as to say that from that time, souls coming onto the Earth are no longer being overlaid with the victim archetype fear-based field of consciousness. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. So, you know, together, Betelgeuse and Leona, they are revealing things that are hidden, specifically hidden fears, hidden attachments to fear-based roles and identities and beliefs. So this is a huge evolutionary push forward in terms of the cosmic allies that have shown up for us relative to these different gate activations and how we are being evolved through the gate activations by including their frequencies and the wisdom that they are activating within us. So I hope all of that made sense to you. I'm just like super, super excited about these three new pieces that have come in. As I said, I've always included Isis and Osiris, but I put them here because they're really relevant in terms of the three new pieces coming in. Now, I've talked about this Mars, this new Mars synodic cycle through Cancer, this new Throne of Christ Aquarian archetype that is all about our inner ascension technology, right? Taking back the technology was the message that I received. William Henry also speaks to this, and he speaks to it in relationship to Osiris, and he calls it this technology of Osiris, right? This technology that brings online the Christ consciousness within us, the pillar of Osiris. And he did a whole book on this. And this is the drawing of the pillar of Osiris. You'll see that it looks very similar to the Ark of the Covenant. And in his book, he makes the connections between the Ark of the Covenant and the pillar of Christ. He also goes on to talk about the throne of Christ, which is a piece of technology that was present during the time that Yeshua and Mary Magdalene were on the earth, that looks very similar to this. And you see that this inner technology is related to our inner chakra system. Remember, I told you through the whole Leo divine royalty goddess journey, we were activating that higher octave of chakras in our rainbow light body. So what you see is when you take the pillar of Osiris, and this also works for the Ark of the Covenant or the throne of Christ, as an architecture, right? A architecture of resurrection, and you place it over the chakra system of the human body, this is what you get. So very much as we're dealing with Venus in Pisces, this archetype, Mars in Cancer, that archetype, and Mercury into its water element year, the water element is going to be crucial for this technology to work. Why? Because it's an inner technology. What is our body mostly comprised of? Water. And in fact, getting back to the external technology that is now being reactivated, that is also ascension or resurrection technology. When they discovered this technology under the Giza pyramid, they discovered that underneath these spiral columns is an underground river of water that conducts the frequencies through these spirals and up through the pyramid. Okay, water is the key here. Now, Jeanette, I couldn't remember her name, Jeanette Bureau. She's the one that mentioned, what was I talking about? Oh, the Osiris Rex and Bennu Prophecy. She mentioned that also in this piece that she did called The Cosmic Secrets of Egypt Are Being Revealed. And it was Thoth who said to her that because we are raising our frequencies, what did we do through the whole Leo goddess? We activated 33 strands of DNA. Now our frequencies are impacting the frequency gates around this hidden technology on the planet. It's like bringing down those frequency gates so that now they can be visible and seen and found by humanity. Now, what's interesting is this announcement about this technology that was found underneath the Giza pyramid was made this year, March 23rd, 2025. The day before, March 22nd, we were in the metamorphic underworld of the Leo goddess journey. It was the metamorphic seed point. The day before this announcement was made. What is the metamorphic seed point? When Venus and the sun come together in the underworld and the Leo divine royalty goddess got morphed, transfigured, transformed into the Pisces divine mother goddess. So now we've got the water element on tap. Yes, it doesn't really start until Venus rises as the Pisces goddess on March 29th, 6 days later, 7 days later. But this announcement was made during that time period when the Leo goddess became transmuted into the Pisces goddess, March 22nd, the day before. What happened the day after? Right? The announcement is on the 23rd. What happened on March 24th? That's when we had a Mercury inferior conjunction. What is a Mercury inferior conjunction? Mercury and the sun coming together in the underworld. And they just happened to also be conjunct Venus that day. That is a whole alignment, a whole alchemical potent alignment that transpired where we are aligning body, mind, and spirit. So the timing in terms of the astrological significance, the frequency significance of that announcement and its relationship to the water elements of the three personal luminary bodies, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, and this whole resurrection technology of the throne of Christ archetype, the prophecy of Osiris and Bennu coming in, the pillar of Osiris as a resurrection technology. That's what this is. This is ascension technology. This is resurrection technology. And so through the Galactic New Earth Project, we are raising the frequency of those engaging with us so that the frequency gates around this technology that's still on the planet can come down, so that it can be found, so that humanity can use this technology within themselves to come into unification and wholeness with the truth of who they are, their divine selves. And Thoth told Jeanette, over the next several years, more and more of this technology that has been hidden by these frequency gates is going to start to be found. So I hope that gives you the big picture of where the Galactic New Earth Project started, how it evolved, and what this whole new evolutionary piece of where we are and what we're doing between now and next October, what's happening here. It's mind-blowing. So I want to thank you if you've stayed with me through all of this. Thank you so much. Let me go back here to William Henry. I did do a whole video on William Henry and his work related to this resurrection technology. And I will put a link to that video at the end as well. So I'll have the link to part 1 of this Galactic Evolutionary Update, and I will have a link to, it's called Activation of the Portal of Manifestation. It's from the Leo goddess. Both of those videos I'll have at the bottom, but all of this information from William Henry and how it relates to the work that we're doing, I share in that. So you might be interested in seeing that as well. Oops, sorry, my mouse isn't working. There we go. If you stayed with me this long, thank you so very, very much. I hope that you will like this video, subscribe to my channel, if you have any comments about anything that I'm sharing in these two parts so far on this Galactic Evolutionary Update, I love hearing from people. Put your comments below, and I will see you next weekend for the summer solstice and part 3 of how the Rosewheel Mystery School has been evolved through everything that's transpired over the past couple of months. So I'm sending you all my love, heart to heart, and take care. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.